What's up, guys? Welcome back to Classic Octane. I am Taylor. So this week I wanted to get a video out to you guys, but I don't have a Will It Run ready, and we are kind of halfway in the middle of a big customer project. So I figured I would put together just kind of a quick update video showing you what I'm working on, what we're doing to this bike, maybe give you a little kind of sneak peek of some other bikes I have laying around the shop that will be future projects. So let's dive into it. So the main build we have going on in the shop this week is a customer build. So this bike was sent down to me from a customer in Chicago, and we are doing, as you can see, pretty much a full build on it. I pulled the motor out the other day because we were stripping some black paint off of it. Somebody had just kind of rattle can blacked it at some point, and it was kind of flaking off. So I'll show you the engine here in a minute. Stripped all the black off, replaced the valve cover gasket, put an OE valve cover on it because it had a chrome one that was kind of chipping. So the motor is pretty much ready to go. What else did I do? We pulled off the whole entire front end because we are going to be putting on clip-ons, a Cognito Moto triple, some universal gauges, a whole new headlight and bucket. Basically the whole front end is going to be changing. I took off the original kind of Gator fork boots, put on some smaller ones just so that they will work properly. When you get rid of your factory headlight mounts, you no longer have a place for that kind of boot to stick to. So that's all torn apart right now. Main reason it can't go back together is because we are waiting on tires. We are going to be doing both tires on this bike, so I don't want to put the rim and everything back on. I'm going to have to pull it off to change the tire, obviously. So as soon as the tires come in, should be tomorrow, I'll be swapping that out. And then the triple I just sent off to Cognito Moto this morning to have them drill and tap it exactly where we want to mount the gauges. So that'll be gone for, I would imagine, a week or so. So we've got a little bit of time before we're going to be able to completely button up this front end, but it should be totally different than what it was originally. So on the back of the bike, we're doing a few things. I'm going to be pulling the swing arm off, sanding it down, and getting it ready to paint black. We're trying to get rid of a lot of the chrome on this bike. The rear shocks have already been replaced with some solid black ones, so that helps. New rear tire, like I mentioned. We are going to be switching the exhaust. It had an aftermarket 4-in-1. Maybe it looks kind of like a Mac muffler. We're going to be switching to the Cone Engineering muffler, either a 12 or an 18-inch. Still trying to figure that out. Just for a little bit better sound, a little bit different look. So we'll be worrying about that when everything is all back together. The frame hoop, he did have this at another shop that put a frame hoop on, but the way that they kind of executed it was, we're going to say, questionable. Basically, there was a pretty large gap in between where the new frame hoop and the original frame met, and they just filled it in with JB Weld. That's not the way that I would ever recommend doing that, so we're probably going to just cut this out, replace it with a fresh hoop, clean up this seat mount, clean up these factory seat mounts and just kind of clean them back up, shoot everything with a nice new coat of chassis black. We are still in the process of figuring out exactly what we want to do with the taillight. It's probably going to be some kind of taillight license plate combo. Again, the customer's going through some different pictures and some different options and figure out what they want to do there. Other than that, I think everything else on the back end is going to stay pretty much how it is. It's got really nice, he already had the side covers in the tank painted black. So those all look great. I just got them sitting over here out of harm's way. So we are going to be running the original side covers, and of course on the 750 there's an oil tank hidden behind here as well. But that's going to be pretty much everything I think we're doing to the back. I have the engine up on my engine stand because, like I mentioned earlier, we stripped all the paint off. So the entire block all the way up to the head and everything was all black. But it wasn't a great paint job, so it wasn't lasting very long. It's just going to continue to kind of chip and get worse over time. So we decided to put the time and effort into stripping it all back down, and I think it looks a lot better. Like I mentioned a minute ago, this is ready to go back into the bike, but I'm going to wait until I finish all of the kind of frame modifications and everything, just so that I'm not having to kind of tape off these holes and try not to get metal dust in there. If I'm going to be doing cutting and grinding, I might as well keep this safe and away. It doesn't really need anything else. I did go ahead and rebuild the carburetors with a vapor blast and everything, so let me show you how those turned out. Here's all the new parts on the top, old parts on the bottom. These are the carbs, and you can see how they turned out. Really nice and clean, vapor blasted and everything to an original finish. So those are going to look great on the bike. Here's the two universal gauges we're going to be running. New headlight, lens, clip-ons, a lot of the kind of factory stuff. Here's that awesome looking gas tank and side covers. They look really good. He has some new emblems on the way for me to put onto the tank. He is running the Tough Side flat seat, which of course is my personal favorite, as you guys probably know. Muffler that came on it that we won't be using. 4-to-1 chain, some other kind of stuff down there that we'll be putting to use, and then whatever is not used will be kind of put into a box and added to our 750 collection, so that whenever I get around to building my own personal 750, which unfortunately is stuck on the side of the house over there, I think we'll have a couple of extra parts we can probably put to use. So I think that's going to do it for the update on the 750 project. I'm hoping to have the whole bike completed within the next, I would say 2 weeks. It would be faster than that, other than having to kind of wait for some of the parts to come in. I would say it'll be 90% done by the beginning of next week. So let me show you another project. So this is a bike I picked up a while back. You guys probably won't believe that I have such a new bike in my shop. But this is a bike I picked up to do kind of a little side project, flip, you can call it. This is a 2010 Triumph Bonneville. This one very obviously has had a bit of a fender bender, we'll call it. So it needs some work. So I was able to pick it up off of Facebook Marketplace. Basically, the previous owner was the guy who crashed it. Was at relatively low speeds. Obviously broke the fork. The original fender was trashed. The headlight, the handlebars bent. I'll show you on that side. And then he did not have full coverage insurance on the bike. So basically it sat. He was going to try to fix it himself. Kind of lost interest or money or time or whatever it was, decided to sell it. So I technically have a clean title on this bike. So my goal is to kind of get it back to a nice running, riding bike. I may keep it for myself for a little, modern, reliable commuter bike, or we may end up selling it. That's kind of to be determined. But overall, the condition isn't terrible. This gas tank, and I don't know if you guys have been following for a little while, but remember that I found this kind of deal on Facebook Marketplace of these people that were trying to clear out an entire garage full of motorcycle parts. That's where I bought my 750 from. That's where I got like a couple of sets of carburetors, a couple of cool gas tanks, and some other stuff. Believe it or not, they actually had the proper fuel-injected Triumph Bonneville gas tank for whatever reason in their garage. They had no other Triumph parts at all. But this bike did not come with a gas tank, so I was able to pick up that gas tank separately, and it's exactly what we need. It is missing the fuel pump and everything, which mounts into the bottom of the tank. Like I mentioned, this is a fuel-injected Bonneville. It was either 2009 or 2010 is the first year that they went to fuel injection, which is going to lead us down this path of me having to get this thing running. So let me show you some kind of interesting stuff on this side of it. So on this side of the bike, you can see this lovely spaghetti of wires that, I don't know if a tow truck driver did this. I know that that's pretty common, that they just will literally cut the entire wiring harness to prevent any kind of like shorts or anything from like catching the bike on fire. That may be the case. This may have been something that the owner did trying to get the bike running again. I've just started to do some research on these Triumphs, and I know that they can be a little bit picky about certain things because they have what's called a CAN bus, which is basically like a network on the bike that connects a lot of the electronics. So if you take off like the factory gauges, it can throw the whole bike off. So basically I'm gonna need to just kind of get this bike back to stock. And I think the best way to do that is probably just buy a complete factory wiring harness for the bike. They're not that expensive off of eBay. So I'll probably do that instead of trying to kind of piece together and match up colors and, solder and heat shrink and, who knows. Some of these may be, so sensitive that they could even pick up on a variance of resistance in the wire. And it's just going to be easy for me to just replace the wiring harness. It's less than $100, and I think it's going to save me way more than that in time. So basically, the next thing I'm going to do to this bike is just order a bunch of parts. We need to order that fuel pump I mentioned, the wiring harness, some fork tubes, a headlight. We need to start to get some kind of controls and stuff coming in. overall the bike is pretty complete. It just needs a good kind of going through and cleaning up, and you know, we're going to need to kind of sand some stuff down and paint it. If we want this bike to look like it's never been in an accident, and then also ride like that, you know, there's just going to be a lot of little cosmetic work. I'm hoping I got a good enough deal on this bike to where the effort is going to be worth it. I don't think the cost of parts is going to be ginormous, so hopefully if we can, you know, spend a couple of $100s in parts and then not more than you know, a couple of days or a week in labor, we'll be able to be in a pretty good spot on this bike should we decide to sell it. So the next bike I'm going to mention is this little 72 CB500. So basically how I came across this bike is I actually had a subscriber reach out to me and says, hey, I'm in Dallas, I have a CB500, if you're interested. You know, if you know me, if you've been watching this channel for any amount of time, know that I'm very fond of the 500 and 550s. So it immediately piqued my interest. I said, hey, you know, shoot me a picture of what you got. We'll see if we can work out a deal. He was in Dallas. I was going to be in Dallas anyway to deliver that brown CB550 we finished up a couple of weeks ago, the one I did a Will It Run video on. So it worked out that I was going to be up there anyway. So it worked out a deal, ended up picking up the bike. It came with what you see here, plus an original tank, a whole big box full of all of the original parts, and then a smaller box full of like spark plugs and some seals and just some kind of new replacement parts. So it's worth it for that. After I loaded the bike up, he was like, oh, by the way, before I forget, I actually have a title for this bike. So that immediately changed from me buying this bike for parts to this could be a potential build. Texas is very strict about having to have titles for bikes. So a bike having a title immediately makes it more valuable for me, especially if we plan to build and sell it. So unfortunately, at some point in this bike's life, somebody decided it would be a good idea to chop the entire rear section of the frame off. Luckily, they did a pretty clean job with cuts. Looks like they just probably took a Sawzall and cut right through it. If you were to sleeve this, you could weld this back into place and have a fully functional frame again. But what I'm thinking is this may be a really good opportunity for us to do kind of a full custom build. So we could do, you know, our own custom kind of rear subframe, maybe a monoshock conversion, use kind of maybe even modern forks on it. I don't think this particular bike would look good with like the gold forks, but if we use like the black, you know, GSXR 600 forks, you can make those look somewhat period correct, and what I mean by that is they don't like stand out, that they're obviously different. You know, the black and the silver kind of match what you would expect to see on this era of bike. So let me know what you guys think we should do. I do have a couple of builds kind of in line before this one, but since I do have a clean title for this bike, now it becomes interesting on what we want to do with it. It's not just a bunch of parts. So I'm probably going to use the top end of this motor to put together another project I have, but I have a complete CB550 motor that we could put into this frame. So this 500 motor will probably, like I said, be used for something else, but we do have a replacement already. So let me know what you think we should do. Should we go crazy and build it all out? Should we weld the stock subframe back on and do somewhat of a smaller, kind of simpler build, which I know almost nobody's going to vote for that because I've done that enough times. So I wanted to show this off. Pretty excited about you know, what our possibilities are. So we will wrap it up with a little update on the LF swap for the 69 Camaro. I had a bunch of parts finally come in, my custom lines and adapters for my power steering, so we can use the LS power steering pump with our upgraded 69 Camaro power steering box in the car. Some clutch stuff, like a remote bleeder, a new slave cylinder, that kind of stuff. My pilot bushing. I just got the pilot bearing pulled out yesterday. I'll make a video on just this and kind of putting the clutch on and transmission and everything hopefully soon. When I pulled that pilot bushing out, it kind of was one step forward, two steps back, and I'll give you details on that. Basically some issue with that, and now we got to put the motor back on the stand and pull the oil pump off, or oil pan off to fix some issues. But again, I'll leave that for another video. So how kind of videos are going to work and how I'm kind of operating the shop overall is basically the first couple of weeks of the month I am focusing 100% on you know, customer bikes, carb rebuilds, vapor blasting, all of that kind of stuff, basically to generate enough revenue to cover the cost of the shop, personal bills and everything. This is my kind of full-time gig now. So basically the first, however long it takes of the month, we'll be focusing on that. That doesn't mean there won't be videos on it. It's just going to be those kind of projects. I'm hoping the last week or so of the month I can kind of transition over to my own personal projects, like the LS swap and the Camaro, like my hardtail Triumph that's been dying to have a little bit of maintenance and stuff done to it ever since the hand-built show, so I can actually start riding that again. And then a couple of my own, kind of personal builds, the little Kawasaki 90 dirt bike and that kind of stuff. So the end of the month will be more of my own kind of fun personal projects. The first section of the month will be projects that are actually going to bring in revenue for the shop. So I hope that kind of makes sense. I still am dying to get on a more kind of regular schedule. That's why I'm trying to put together videos like this, so I can at least get you guys content, once, twice, hopefully up to maybe 3 times a week. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Let me know what you guys think about, if you care to have weekly shop updates, and I'll make sure to kind of continue to do it. Yeah, subscribe if you haven't already, if you like this kind of content, and I'll see you guys soon.